Ladies and gentlemen, let's sit together for a moment and unpack a truth that is as old as time, yet as fresh as the morning news. We are gathered here to explore a question that stirs the hearts of many and demands a conversation rooted in honesty, compassion, and curiosity. Why do men leave women who care for them? Now, I want you to picture this. A woman pours herself, her time, her energy, her love into someone she believes she's building a life with. She gives not because she has to, but because her heart compels her to. She nurtures, she sacrifices, she shows up in ways that some would call extraordinary. And yet, he walks away. Why? The first thing we need to understand is this love is not a debt owed. Care and kindness should never be confused with control or obligation. You can give a man everything, cook his meals, wash his clothes, and support him through life's storms, but if he doesn't feel anchored in his own sense of self, he may see your care not as a gift, but as a weight. Here's the truth many men, consciously or unconsciously, fear being cared for too deeply because it forces them to confront their own vulnerabilities. When someone shows you real love, it reflects back to you the love you might not yet have for yourself. And for some, that reflection is too much to bear. Another layer to this is the question of identity. Sometimes when women step into the role of caregiver, they unknowingly blur the lines between partnership and parenthood. When a man feels mothered instead of partnered, it can chip away at the romantic foundation of the relationship. And let me tell you, no grown man wants to feel like a child in the arms of his lover. But let's not stop there. Let's also look at the stories men carry, the unspoken expectations, the fears, the wounds they've tucked away. Society teaches men to be strong, stoic providers of solutions. When faced with a woman's love that doesn't require fixing, some men don't know how to receive it. They feel unworthy, and instead of embracing that love, they flee from it. Now, before we cast judgment or assign blame, let's take a breath. Leaving isn't always about the woman. It's not always about what she did or didn't do. Sometimes it's about a man's personal journey, his own growing pains, his own search for meaning, his own reckoning with the kind of partner he's ready to be. So what do we do with this? What do we take from this truth? We don't stop caring. We don't harden our hearts or build walls so tall no one can climb them. No, we learn to care differently. We learn to care in ways that honor not just the person we're loving, but also ourselves. You see, loving someone isn't about losing yourself in the process. It's about showing up whole and inviting the other person to do the same. It's about creating a space where both partners feel valued, respected, and free to be their authentic selves. Ladies, hear me when I say this: your care is not your weakness. Your love is not your burden, but it is your responsibility to give it wisely, to ensure it is met with the same energy, respect, and commitment you so freely offer. And men, if you are here today, let this be your call to action. When someone shows you care, don't run from it. Lean into it. Use it as an opportunity to grow, to heal, to rise into the version of yourself you were always meant to be. So let's love boldly but wisely. Let's care deeply but with balance. And let's remember that the best relationships are built not on sacrifice, but on mutual respect, shared dreams, and the kind of care that lifts both people higher. Thank you. Sometimes deep care reflects a man's own insecurities and unresolved wounds. Instead of embracing it, he may reject it because it challenges his sense of self-worth. Men may perceive care as an encroachment on their freedom, mistaking love and support for control or obligation, even when it's not. Traditional masculinity often discourages men from receiving care openly, making them feel weak or emasculated when a woman nurtures them deeply. When care becomes overwhelming or starts resembling parental behavior, men might feel infantilized, leading to emotional or physical withdrawal. A man who isn't ready to fully commit or receive love may leave, not because of the woman's care, but due to his own emotional unpreparedness. If the dynamic feels one-sided, where the woman gives more than she receives, the man might feel guilty or inadequate, pushing him to step away. Men may leave if they don't feel cared for in ways that resonate with their emotional needs, even if the woman is deeply nurturing in her way. Overcare can unintentionally diminish a man's sense of agency or role in the relationship, leading him to seek validation outside of it. Men sometimes fear that receiving care comes with unspoken expectations of reciprocity, responsibility, or long-term commitment, causing them to retreat. Care doesn't always equate to compatibility. Men may leave because their personal growth or goals no longer align with the relationship despite the woman's care. When a man leaves a woman who deeply cares for him, it is often not because of her love, but because of the vulnerability her care forces him to confront. This vulnerability acts as a mirror, reflecting his internal struggles, insecurities, and emotional wounds. Love, in its most genuine form, lays bare the parts of ourselves we would rather keep hidden. For some men, this unmasking is uncomfortable, even overwhelming. Caring deeply for someone is an act of vulnerability in itself. It requires trust, openness, and an invitation for the other person to step into your life in a meaningful way. When a woman pours her care into a man, she creates a space where he feels seen and valued. However, being truly seen is not always a comforting experience. Many men have been conditioned to suppress emotions, avoid weakness, and equate vulnerability with failure. They grow up with messages that tell them to man up, to be stoic, and to solve problems without asking for help. In this context, being cared for can feel foreign, even threatening. The care a woman offers can unintentionally highlight what a man lacks within himself. If he struggles with self-worth, he may perceive her love as undeserved. This reflection can stir feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt, making him question whether he is capable of maintaining the relationship. Rather than confronting these uncomfortable emotions, some men choose to distance themselves, believing it's easier to walk away than to unpack the complexities of their own hearts. It is not her care that pushes him away, but his inability to reconcile the image of himself she holds up for him to see. The mirror of vulnerability also reflects a man's fears. Love requires the risk of being hurt, of failing, of not living up to expectations. A woman's deep care magnifies this risk because it demonstrates what he stands to lose. For men who have been hurt in the past, whether by romantic partners, family, or friends, the possibility of reliving that pain can be paralyzing. Instead of embracing the love being offered, they might retreat, convinced that leaving first is a form of protection. Another layer to this dynamic is the pressure care can create. When a man feels genuinely loved and supported, it can awaken a sense of responsibility. He may feel that he must now meet the woman's care with equal or greater intensity, which can be daunting for someone who is unsure of his emotional capabilities. If he doubts his ability to reciprocate her love in a way she deserves, he might withdraw to avoid the perceived inevitability of failure. Her care, rather than being a comfort, becomes a reminder of his fears of inadequacy. It's also important to consider how vulnerability intersects with a man's sense of identity. In many cultures, masculinity is tied to being a provider, a protector, and a figure of strength. When a woman cares for a man deeply, it can challenge these traditional roles, making him feel that his identity is being questioned. He may struggle to find his place in a relationship where he is not the primary giver, but instead the recipient of care. This reversal of roles, though often unintentional, can leave him feeling emasculated or uncertain about his value in the partnership. For some men, being cared for triggers feelings they are not ready to face. It might remind them of unresolved pain, such as neglect or abandonment in their childhood. A woman's unconditional care can inadvertently reopen these wounds, forcing him to confront parts of his past he has long avoided. Instead of embracing the opportunity for healing, he may choose to avoid the discomfort entirely by leaving the relationship. Love's mirror is not always a comfortable reflection. It shows us our flaws, our fears, and our vulnerabilities in stark detail. For a man unaccustomed to introspection, this can be a frightening experience. A woman's care asks him to show up authentically, to be honest about who he is, and to let go of the armor he has worn for so long. If he is not ready for this level of emotional honesty, he may interpret her care as a demand rather than a gift, leading him to push her away. When a man leaves a woman who deeply cares for him, it is often rooted in the fear of losing his independence. Independence for many men is not just a state of being, but a cornerstone of their identity. From a young age, society instills the idea that autonomy is synonymous with strength and self-worth. The notion of being self-reliant is celebrated, while dependence on others is often viewed as a weakness. In this context, a woman's care, no matter how genuine and well-intentioned, can feel like an encroachment on a man's freedom, triggering a deeply ingrained need to protect his sense of self. The dynamic begins subtly. A woman's care may manifest in acts of kindness, offering advice, helping him through challenges, or simply being present in ways that demonstrate her commitment to the relationship. For someone who values independence, these gestures can unintentionally create tension. He may begin to interpret her care as an expectation that he will need to give up certain aspects of his life, whether it's his time, his hobbies, or even his sense of control over decisions. This perception, even if unfounded, can feel suffocating. The fear of losing independence is often rooted in past experiences. Perhaps he has seen relationships where one partner's care became overbearing or where individuality was sacrificed in the name of togetherness. These observations can shape his views, making him wary of any dynamic that feels similar. Even when a woman's care is balanced and respectful of his autonomy, he may still perceive it as the beginning of a pattern he fears. This fear is not about the woman herself, but about the stories he tells himself based on his history and the narratives he has internalized about relationships. For some men, independence represents more than personal freedom. It is tied to their sense of control. Being in control allows them to navigate life on their terms, to make decisions without external influence, and to prioritize their own needs and desires. When a woman cares deeply, it can sometimes feel as though she is asking for a level of collaboration or compromise that threatens this control. He might interpret her care as a request to share decision-making power or to alter the trajectory of his life to accommodate hers. This perceived shift can be unsettling, especially if he has spent a significant part of his life defining himself through his autonomy. The fear of losing independence is also tied to the vulnerability that comes with being cared for. To accept care means to admit that one cannot do everything alone, which contradicts the societal narrative that men must always be strong and self-sufficient. Allowing someone to care for him requires trust and the willingness to let go of some of that control. For men who equate independence with strength, this can feel like a loss of power or a betrayal of their identity. They may distance themselves to preserve the sense of self they have worked so hard to build. Additionally, independence often extends to emotional autonomy. Men are frequently conditioned to process their emotions privately, if at all, and to rely on themselves for emotional regulation. When a woman offers emotional care, encouraging him to share his thoughts and feelings, it can challenge this ingrained behavior. He may fear that opening up will make him reliant on her for emotional support, a dependence he is not prepared for. This fear can lead him to pull away, even if her intentions are purely to support and uplift him. There is also the question of time and space. Independence often means having the freedom to pursue one's interests, spend time alone, and maintain a sense of individuality within a relationship. A woman's care, no matter how well-meaning, can sometimes be perceived as a demand on his time or an infringement on his personal space. He might fear that the relationship will leave little room for the things that make him feel most himself. This fear can grow if he does not communicate his need for balance, causing him to withdraw instead of addressing the issue directly. For men who prize their independence, relationships can feel like a paradox. On one hand, they desire connection, love, and the stability that comes with a caring partner. On the other hand, they fear that the relationship will come at the cost of their individuality. This internal conflict creates a push and pull dynamic where the deeper the woman cares, the more he feels the need to assert his independence. The tension is not a reflection of her actions, but of his internal struggle to reconcile his desire for connection with his fear of losing himself in the process. In many cases, the fear of losing independence is less about the reality of the relationship and more about the narratives and assumptions a man holds. He may project his fears onto the woman's care, interpreting her love as a threat to the autonomy he cherishes. This fear can drive him to make decisions that protect his independence, even at the expense of the relationship. Rather than communicating his concerns or seeking a middle ground, he may choose to leave, believing that it is the only way to maintain his sense of self. Societal expectations play a profound role in shaping relationships, often creating unseen tensions that influence how men respond to care within a partnership. From a young age, many men are conditioned by cultural norms that dictate how they should think, act, and feel. These expectations are deeply ingrained, defining masculinity in ways that can clash with the dynamics of modern relationships. When a woman cares deeply for a man, these societal pressures can create an internal conflict, prompting him to distance himself rather than confront the discomfort of reconciling his emotions with the roles he has been taught to play. One of the most pervasive societal expectations is the notion that men must be strong, stoic, and self-reliant. This image of masculinity leaves little room for vulnerability or dependence on others. As a result, when a woman offers care, whether through emotional support, acts of service, or simply being a consistent presence, it can feel like a challenge to the man's identity. Accepting care may require him to acknowledge that he cannot handle everything alone, a realization that can feel like a betrayal of the societal image he has internalized. This discomfort can lead him to reject her care, not because he does not value it, but because it threatens the persona he believes he must maintain. Emotional suppression is another expectation placed on men by society. Boys are often taught to hide their feelings, to man up in the face of adversity, and to avoid appearing weak at all costs. In this context, a woman's care, which often involves emotional intimacy, can feel overwhelming. It may encourage him to express feelings he has long buried or avoided. While this emotional openness is healthy and necessary for a thriving relationship, it can also be frightening for a man who has been conditioned to equate vulnerability with weakness. Rather than embracing the opportunity to grow emotionally, he might withdraw to protect himself from confronting these deeply held fears. Society also teaches men to equate their worth with their ability to provide and protect. This expectation creates an implicit pressure to be the dominant partner in a relationship. When a woman demonstrates care, especially in ways that involve emotional or financial support, it can challenge this traditional role. A man may feel emasculated if he perceives her care as a sign that he is not fulfilling his societal duty as the provider. Even if the woman's care is offered without judgment, the man's internalized belief system may lead him to see it as a reflection of his inadequacy. This perceived imbalance can create resentment or fear, causing him to distance himself from the relationship. The stigma surrounding mental health and emotional struggles also plays a role. Many men are reluctant to admit when they are struggling, as society often associates mental health challenges with weakness or failure. When a woman cares deeply, she may notice signs of emotional distress and encourage him to address them. While her intentions are supportive, the man might interpret this as a critique of his ability to manage his life. The societal expectation to always appear composed and in control can make him resistant to her help, pushing him further away despite her good intentions. Peer influence further reinforces these societal expectations. Men often navigate relationships under the watchful eye of friends, family, and colleagues who may perpetuate traditional views of masculinity. If a man's social circle values independence and dominance, he may fear judgment for being in a relationship where he openly accepts care. This external pressure can lead him to prioritize the approval of his peers over the genuine connection offered by his partner. The fear of being perceived as whipped or overly dependent can overshadow his desire to embrace the relationship fully. Another layer to this dynamic is the fear of appearing vulnerable in public. Men are often socialized to project confidence and strength, particularly in social settings. If a man feels that accepting a woman's care will make him appear vulnerable to others, he may reject her efforts to maintain his public image. This fear is compounded when society romanticizes independence as a sign of strength and dismisses interdependence as weakness. The man may distance himself, not because he does not value the relationship, but because he feels he must adhere to societal norms to maintain his perceived status. These societal pressures, deeply rooted and often unexamined, create barriers to authentic connection. They force men to navigate relationships with a constant push and pull between their internal desires and the external roles they feel obligated to fulfill. The tension between societal expectations and the reality of being cared for can lead men to make decisions that prioritize conformity over connection, ultimately leaving behind relationships that may have had the potential to thrive. When a man leaves a woman who deeply cares for him, it may stem from misaligned dynamics within the relationship. These dynamics, often subtle and unspoken, can create a disconnect between the partners, leading to frustration, misunderstandings, and emotional distance. The act of caring, while deeply meaningful, can sometimes be expressed or perceived in ways that fail to resonate with the other person's needs, values, or expectations. This mismatch can create an imbalance that strains the relationship, even when the intent behind the care is genuine and well-meaning. At the heart of misaligned dynamics is the difference in how people give and receive love. Each person has their own unique way of expressing affection, shaped by upbringing, past experiences, and personal preferences. For example, one partner may prioritize acts of service as a way to show love, while the other values words of affirmation or quality time. If a woman expresses her care by doing things for a man, cooking his meals, managing household responsibilities, or helping him through challenges, but he primarily values verbal acknowledgement or physical closeness, he may not fully recognize or appreciate her efforts. Over time, this disconnect can create feelings of being misunderstood or unsupported, even though both partners are trying to show love in their own way. Another layer of misaligned dynamics arises from differing expectations about roles in the relationship. Traditional gender norms often shape how men and women approach partnership, and these expectations can clash in modern relationships. A woman who is highly nurturing and takes on a caregiver role may unintentionally make the man feel as though he is being placed in a dependent position, which can challenge his sense of masculinity. Conversely, a man who expects to be the primary provider or decision maker may feel threatened or displaced if the woman's care feels too assertive or directive. These role-based misalignments can create tension, even if both partners are acting out of love and good intentions. Power dynamics further complicate the alignment of a relationship. In some cases, care can unintentionally shift the balance of power, making one partner feel indebted or inferior. For example, if a woman consistently provides emotional or financial support, the man may begin to feel as though he is losing his independence or role within the relationship. He might interpret her care as a reminder of his shortcomings, even if she does not see it that way. This perceived shift in power can erode his confidence and sense of identity, prompting him to distance himself rather than address the underlying issue. Cultural and personal values also play a role in shaping relationship dynamics. If a woman's care is expressed in ways that align with her own values but clash with the man's worldview, it can create friction. For instance, a woman raised to believe in constant acts of nurturing might express her love through small, frequent gestures, while a man who values independence might see these gestures as unnecessary or excessive. These cultural and personal differences, if not openly discussed and understood, can lead to feelings of incompatibility over time. Misaligned dynamics are often amplified by a lack of clear communication. When assumptions replace conversations, misunderstandings become more likely. A man may feel that a woman's care comes with unspoken expectations, such as a commitment to long-term plans or a certain lifestyle, even if she has not explicitly stated these desires. Similarly, a woman may interpret a man's withdrawal as indifference, when in reality he is struggling to articulate his feelings about the dynamic. Without open dialogue, these misalignments grow, creating emotional distance and unmet needs. In relationships, care must be both given and received in ways that resonate with both partners. When the dynamics become misaligned, even the most loving intentions can feel misplaced or unreciprocated. This gap in understanding can lead to frustration, resentment, or a sense of disconnection, ultimately pushing one or both partners away. While love is often the foundation of a relationship, alignment in values, communication, and expectations is what sustains it. Misaligned dynamics left unaddressed can create a rift that even the deepest care cannot bridge, leading to the difficult decision to part ways despite the love that exists. When a man leaves a woman who deeply cares for him, it can often be attributed to unfulfilled emotional readiness. Emotional readiness is the ability to fully engage in a relationship with openness, vulnerability, and the capacity to give and receive love without hesitation or fear. It requires an alignment of emotional maturity, self-awareness, and a willingness to embrace the complexities of intimacy. When a man lacks this readiness, even the most genuine care from a woman can feel overwhelming, unwanted, or out of sync with his personal journey. A key aspect of emotional readiness is self-awareness. This involves understanding one's own needs, boundaries, and capacity for connection. Many men, shaped by societal expectations and personal experiences, may enter relationships without fully understanding their own emotional landscape. They may desire love and connection but struggle to articulate or even recognize what they need from a partner. When a woman offers care, it can shine a spotlight on these gaps in self-awareness, making the man feel exposed or inadequate. Instead of exploring these feelings, he may choose to withdraw, perceiving the relationship as too challenging or demanding. Past experiences play a significant role in shaping emotional readiness. For men who have experienced emotional neglect, betrayal, or unresolved trauma, the ability to trust and connect deeply can be impaired. A woman's care, though well-intentioned, can trigger memories of past pain or fears of vulnerability. For instance, if a man has been hurt in previous relationships, he may associate deep care with the risk of being let down again. Even if the woman's actions are rooted in love, his unhealed wounds can make it difficult for him to fully embrace her care. In this way, his emotional unreadiness becomes a barrier to the connection she is offering. Timing is another crucial factor in emotional readiness. A man may be at a stage in his life where he is focused on personal growth, career aspirations, or resolving inner conflicts. Entering a relationship during such a period can feel like a distraction or an added pressure. When a woman cares deeply, she often seeks emotional reciprocity and a shared vision for the future. If the man is not in a place where he can align his goals with hers, he may feel that remaining in the relationship would be unfair to both of them. This mismatch in timing, rather than a lack of affection, often leads to the decision to leave. Fear also plays a central role in emotional unreadiness. Love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires courage. For some men, the prospect of opening up emotionally can be intimidating. They may fear being judged, misunderstood, or losing control of their emotions. A woman's care often invites a deeper level of intimacy, encouraging him to share his thoughts, feelings, and fears. If he is not prepared to confront these aspects of himself, he may perceive her care as a threat rather than a comfort. This fear can drive him to distance himself, even if he genuinely values the relationship. The weight of expectations can also contribute to emotional unreadiness. A man may fear that accepting a woman's care comes with certain implicit expectations, such as a long-term commitment or specific roles within the relationship. These perceived expectations, whether real or imagined, can feel like a burden he is not prepared to carry. He may feel unworthy of her care or doubt his ability to meet her needs, leading to a sense of inadequacy. Instead of discussing these fears openly, he might retreat, believing it is easier to walk away than to risk disappointing her. The lack of emotional readiness often creates an imbalance in the relationship. When one partner is fully prepared to invest emotionally while the other is hesitant or unsure, it can lead to frustration and misunderstandings. The woman may feel that her efforts are unappreciated, while the man may feel pressured to meet expectations he cannot fulfill. This dynamic can create a cycle of unmet needs and unspoken frustrations, ultimately driving a wedge between the two partners. It's also important to recognize that emotional readiness is not a fixed state, but a continuum. A man who is emotionally unready today may evolve and grow into someone capable of deep connection in the future. However, growth requires self-awareness, time, and effort. If a man is not actively working on his emotional development, he may continue to encounter the same challenges in every relationship. A woman's care, no matter how genuine, cannot accelerate his readiness. It is a journey he must undertake on his own. Sometimes the man himself does not fully understand why he feels compelled to leave a caring partner. Emotional unreadiness can manifest as a vague sense of discomfort or restlessness, making it difficult for him to articulate his reasons for pulling away. He may rationalize his decision by focusing on external factors, such as work stress or incompatibility, rather than confronting the deeper internal struggles that prevent him from fully engaging in the relationship. Unbalanced relationships often serve as a silent force that erodes the foundation of partnerships, causing one or both individuals to feel unfulfilled, misunderstood, or undervalued. When a man leaves a woman who genuinely cares for him, it may stem from the weight of imbalance within their relationship. This imbalance can manifest in various forms, such as uneven emotional investment, differing levels of commitment, or unmet expectations. Over time, these disparities create tension and dissatisfaction, prompting the man to withdraw, even if the relationship is filled with care and affection. One of the most common forms of imbalance arises in the level of emotional investment. In many relationships, one partner may naturally express their feelings more openly and frequently, while the other struggles to match that level of vulnerability. A woman who deeply cares for her partner may consistently demonstrate her affection through words, actions, and unwavering support. If the man, due to emotional unreadiness or personal habits, is unable to reciprocate at the same level, he may begin to feel inadequate or pressured. This disparity can lead him to perceive the relationship as overwhelming, making him believe that he cannot meet the expectations placed upon him. The imbalance of emotional labor also plays a significant role in strained relationships. Emotional labor refers to the effort involved in nurturing the emotional well-being of both partners. In many cases, women are socialized to take on this role, often becoming the primary caretakers of the relationship's emotional health. They initiate difficult conversations, address conflicts, and ensure that both partners feel connected and valued. When this effort is not equally shared, the woman may begin to feel drained, while the man might feel burdened by the perceived pressure to engage in emotional work he may not fully understand. This disconnect creates a dynamic where neither partner feels entirely satisfied or supported. Another form of imbalance occurs when there is a discrepancy in the level of commitment to the relationship. A woman who is ready to invest fully emotionally, mentally, and even practically may find herself paired with a man who is uncertain about his long-term intentions. This misalignment can lead to frustration on both sides. She might feel unappreciated or question his dedication, while he may feel cornered or unprepared to meet the expectations of a committed partnership. This gap in commitment often results in one partner overcompensating, trying to hold the relationship together while the other withdraws further, leading to eventual disconnection. Power dynamics within a relationship can also create imbalance. Power is not always about dominance or control. It often manifests subtly through decision-making, financial contributions, or the distribution of responsibilities. A relationship where one partner consistently holds more influence or takes on a greater share of responsibilities can leave the other feeling disempowered or irrelevant. For instance, if a woman's care takes the form of managing most aspects of the couple's lives, whether it's finances, household duties, or emotional support, the man may begin to feel as though his role in the relationship has diminished. This perceived loss of agency can create resentment, even if her actions stem from love and a desire to nurture. Differences in communication styles can further exacerbate the imbalance. A woman who is communicative and proactive in addressing issues may find herself paired with a man who is more reserved or conflict averse. While she may view her approach as constructive and caring, he might perceive it as overwhelming or intrusive. This difference in communication creates a scenario where one partner feels unheard or ignored, while the other feels criticized or pressured. Over time, these mismatched approaches to conflict resolution and emotional expression can widen the gap between them, making it harder to find common ground. Another significant source of imbalance lies in differing life priorities or goals. A woman who deeply cares for her partner may envision a shared future built on mutual aspirations, whether it involves marriage, family, or other long-term commitments. If the man's priorities do not align with hers, he may feel that staying in the relationship requires him to compromise his personal goals or desires. This misalignment can lead to feelings of frustration or guilt, driving him to leave the relationship rather than navigate the complexities of reconciling their differences. When love languages are misaligned, both individuals in a relationship may struggle to recognize or fully appreciate the other's efforts. For instance, a woman who cares deeply for her partner might express her love through acts of service, such as cooking meals, handling daily tasks, or offering help during stressful times. If her partner values words of affirmation more, he might not perceive these acts as love, but rather as routine gestures. While she feels she is demonstrating care through her actions, he might feel emotionally neglected because he craves verbal validation or compliments that align with his emotional needs. Over time, this misalignment can create frustration on both sides. She feels unappreciated for her efforts, and he feels unloved or misunderstood. Similarly, a man whose primary love language is physical touch may naturally seek connection through gestures like hugging, holding hands, or casual touch. If his partner prioritizes quality time, she might focus on planning meaningful conversations or shared activities while overlooking his need for physical closeness. He might begin to interpret the lack of physical affection as emotional distance, even though her intention is to nurture the relationship in a way that feels meaningful to her. This disconnect can leave him feeling unfulfilled and questioning the compatibility of their bond. The tension caused by love language incompatibility is often exacerbated by a lack of awareness or understanding of these differences. Many people assume that the way they express love should naturally be understood and appreciated by their partner. Without open communication about individual needs, these assumptions can lead to unmet expectations. For example, one partner might expect the other to reciprocate care in the same language they prefer, leading to disappointment when those efforts are not mirrored. The lack of alignment in how love is expressed and received can slowly erode the emotional connection, even in an otherwise caring relationship. Cultural and personal upbringing also play a significant role in shaping love languages, adding another layer of complexity to compatibility. A person raised in a family where love was expressed through giving may naturally gravitate toward material tokens of affection as a primary way of showing care. If their partner, on the other hand, values quality time and views gift giving as impersonal, the gifts may feel like empty gestures rather than meaningful expressions of love. This divergence, rooted in deeply ingrained habits and values, can create a persistent sense of misalignment that is difficult to overcome without intentional effort. Another challenge arises from the fact that love languages can evolve over time. What resonates with a person in one phase of life may shift as their priorities and experiences change. A man who once valued physical touch above all else may, over time, place greater importance on words of affirmation or quality time. If his partner does not recognize or adapt to these changes, the expressions of care that once felt fulfilling may no longer meet his needs. This evolution can create a sense of disconnect, as one partner continues to express love in ways that were once effective, but no longer resonate. Incompatibility in love languages can also lead to feelings of rejection or inadequacy. When one partner's efforts to show love are not received as intended, it can be easy to misinterpret the lack of appreciation as a lack of love. A woman who spends hours planning thoughtful surprises or preparing heartfelt gestures might feel unvalued if her partner does not respond with enthusiasm. Meanwhile, the man might feel overwhelmed or unsure of how to reciprocate in a way that feels authentic to him. These misunderstandings can create a cycle of unmet needs and unspoken resentments, further widening the gap between them. While love languages provide a framework for understanding how people express and perceive love, they also highlight the importance of adaptability and compromise in relationships. When partners remain rigid in their preferred love languages, they risk creating an emotional stalemate where neither feels fully understood or satisfied. This rigidity often stems from a lack of communication or fear of vulnerability, as discussing personal needs and preferences requires honesty and courage. Without these conversations, the emotional disconnect caused by incompatible love languages can fester, leading one or both partners to question the viability of the relationship. Identity crises in relationships often emerge when the act of caring shifts from an expression of love to a source of internal conflict. When a man leaves a woman who genuinely cares for him, it may be because her care unintentionally triggers or amplifies an identity crisis within him. This is not a reflection of her intentions or actions, but rather a complex interplay of his personal insecurities, societal expectations, and the dynamics of the relationship. Such crises challenge his sense of self, creating tension between his desire for connection and his need for autonomy. At the core of this issue is the way care is perceived. While many view care as an unambiguous positive force, for some, receiving care can feel like a reflection of their own inadequacies or vulnerabilities. A man who has been socialized to equate independence with strength may struggle to accept care without feeling as though he is losing control of his life. Acts of support, whether emotional, practical, or financial, may inadvertently highlight areas where he feels he falls short, triggering feelings of inadequacy. This internal conflict can lead him to reject not only the care itself, but also the relationship, as it becomes a mirror for insecurities he is not ready to face. Societal norms and gender roles further complicate this dynamic. Men are often expected to embody traits such as stoicism, self-reliance, and the ability to provide. When a woman's care challenges these expectations, perhaps by offering emotional depth or taking on responsibilities traditionally associated with a provider role, it can create an identity dissonance. The man might perceive her care as undermining his role in the relationship, even if that is not her intention. This perceived shift in roles can make him question his value, prompting him to withdraw in an attempt to reclaim a sense of identity that aligns with societal ideals. The relationship itself can sometimes exacerbate this identity struggle. A deeply caring partner often invests significant emotional energy into understanding and supporting their loved one, which can inadvertently place the man in a position where he feels scrutinized or overly dependent. While her intent is to nurture and strengthen the bond, he may interpret her care as a sign that he cannot stand on his own. This misperception can create a cycle where he begins to pull away, fearing that the relationship is eroding his individuality. Past experiences also play a significant role in shaping how a man reacts to care. If he has previously faced situations where care came with strings attached, such as expectations of reciprocity, control, or obligation, he may associate even genuine acts of love with hidden agendas. A woman's care, no matter how sincere, can become a trigger for these past associations, making him feel trapped or manipulated. This unresolved baggage complicates his ability to receive care without questioning its implications for his identity and autonomy. Timing is another critical factor. A man who is in the process of defining or redefining his identity, perhaps due to career changes, personal growth, or transitional life stages, may find that the act of being cared for feels at odds with his current priorities. In such cases, care can feel less like support and more like an interruption to his journey of self-discovery. He may struggle to balance his need for independence with the vulnerability required to accept love, leading to internal conflict that ultimately pushes him away from the relationship. Communication breakdowns can also deepen the identity crisis triggered by care. If a man feels unable to express his discomfort or confusion, he may internalize these emotions, leading to frustration and resentment. A woman's care, no matter how well-intentioned, can become a source of tension if it is not accompanied by open and empathetic dialogue. Without the opportunity to articulate his feelings, he may retreat into himself, creating a rift that grows wider with time. Cultural influences further shape the way care is perceived and received. In some cultures, reliance on a partner for emotional or practical support may be seen as a weakness or failure to fulfill traditional roles. A man who internalizes these beliefs may struggle to reconcile his cultural identity with the dynamics of a modern caring relationship, where acts of support, while rooted in love, can feel like a challenge to deeply ingrained values, leading to a sense of internal conflict that he may not know how to resolve. Another layer of complexity arises from the expectations embedded in care. Even when unspoken, care often carries an implicit hope for reciprocity or progress in the relationship. A man who feels unprepared or unwilling to meet these expectations may begin to see the care as a burden rather than a gift. This perception can lead him to question not only the relationship, but also his ability to be the partner he believes he should be, further deepening his identity crisis. The pressure to conform to relationship ideals also contributes to this dynamic. In a world where relationships are often portrayed as requiring constant emotional investment and mutual support, a man who struggles to align with these ideals may feel like he is failing both himself and his partner. The more his partner invests in him, the more he may feel the weight of these expectations, leading him to pull away in an attempt to preserve his sense of self. The fear of expectations often lies at the heart of why some men leave women who care deeply for them. While the care may be genuine, the pressure of meeting the expectations that come with it can create a sense of suffocation and anxiety. Expectations, whether explicit or implicit, often come with a sense of obligation and responsibility that some individuals are not ready or willing to shoulder. For many men, the fear of not being able to fulfill these expectations, especially those tied to love, commitment, or emotional intimacy, can lead them to retreat or even end the relationship. The fear of expectations often arises when one partner's desires or hopes for the future seem incompatible with the other's emotional capacity or readiness. When a woman expresses her care, it might come with certain expectations for how that care should be reciprocated. These could range from emotional openness, commitment to the relationship, or even the desire for long-term plans like marriage or children. While these expectations are often rooted in love and the hope for a deep connection, they can create pressure on the man to meet those expectations, even when he might not feel emotionally prepared for such a step. The fear of not measuring up can then overwhelm him, leading him to distance himself or leave altogether. The societal conditioning of men often intensifies this fear. Many men grow up with the idea that they must be strong, self-sufficient, and capable of providing for those they love. These cultural expectations can create a profound fear of vulnerability, as expressing emotional needs or depending on a partner can be seen as a sign of weakness. When a woman cares for him deeply, offering support or expressing her emotional needs, the man may fear that this care will expose him as inadequate. He may worry that her expectations are an invitation to live up to societal ideals of what it means to be a partner, whether it's being the emotional rock, the provider, or the protector, and this pressure can become overwhelming. This fear is often compounded by the difficulty of communication. Many men are not taught how to effectively communicate their fears, insecurities, or the pressure they feel from expectations. If a man does not feel capable of expressing the weight he carries, he may internalize these feelings, leading to resentment or anxiety. Rather than confronting the fear of expectations directly, he might withdraw, believing that it is easier to distance himself than to discuss his worries and risk disappointing his partner. This withdrawal, often mistaken for indifference or lack of commitment, is actually a defense mechanism to avoid facing the internal conflict created by the perceived demands of the relationship. There is also the fear of failure in relationships, which often intersects with the fear of expectations. Relationships by nature require effort, and the expectations of emotional availability, compromise, and growth can seem daunting. For some men, the pressure to be constantly available or to meet emotional needs in a way that feels fulfilling can trigger a fear of not being able to handle the relationship's demands. The notion of not being able to live up to these expectations can feel like an impending failure. This fear of failure often leads to avoidance, where the man may choose to leave rather than risk the possibility of not being good enough or not being able to meet the needs of his partner. The timing of the relationship also plays a role in amplifying this fear. If the man is not at a place in his life where he feels ready to meet these expectations, whether that's emotional maturity, career stability, or personal growth, he may perceive the relationship as something he cannot manage. When his partner expresses care, it may feel like a reminder of his own perceived shortcomings, pushing him further away. The fear of not living up to her expectations becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as he may decide to leave rather than risk confronting what feels like an insurmountable task. When two people enter a relationship, there is often a shared sense of connection, purpose, and mutual growth. However, as time passes, individual growth may pull them in different directions. The growth on separate paths is a common but painful reality in relationships, especially when one partner's personal development leads them in a direction that no longer aligns with the other's goals, values, or needs. This divergence doesn't necessarily imply failure or a lack of love. Instead, it highlights the complexity of human growth and the sometimes inevitable process of changing at different rates or in different ways. One of the primary reasons for growth on separate paths is the evolving nature of personal development. Individuals are constantly growing and changing, shaped by new experiences, interests, and perspectives. A man who initially found comfort in a relationship may later realize that his goals, desires, and values have shifted in ways that his partner cannot relate to. For example, as he matures or progresses in his career, his sense of purpose or ambition may grow, requiring different priorities or a lifestyle that no longer fits with the dynamic of the relationship. The woman, in contrast, may find herself deepening her own sense of identity, embracing new interests or exploring career goals that take her in an entirely different direction. As their individual lives unfold, they find themselves walking parallel paths rather than together, leading to a growing sense of emotional disconnection. This shift can also occur because of differing emotional needs. Early in a relationship, two people may complement each other perfectly, each offering the support, companionship, or emotional reassurance that the other needs. Over time, however, one partner may begin to crave different kinds of emotional fulfillment, or may feel that their emotional growth is stifled by the relationship. For instance, the man might want more independence to explore new avenues of his personal life, while the woman may continue to prioritize emotional closeness and bonding. As one partner seeks more space or freedom to grow in ways that feel authentic to them, the relationship's original structure may no longer feel viable or nurturing. The growing need for emotional autonomy can create a divide, making both partners feel isolated despite still caring for each other. Another aspect of growth on separate paths is the influence of life's circumstances. Life's natural transitions, such as changing careers, moving to a new location, or experiencing personal loss, can significantly impact the trajectory of an individual's path. When these transitions occur, they often require a reevaluation of life priorities. A man who, for example, decides to pursue a career abroad or further his education may find himself on a path that his partner cannot follow. Similarly, the woman's journey might take her into new areas of personal exploration, such as building a new business or pursuing a passion that doesn't necessarily fit within the context of the existing relationship. While both partners are still committed to their own growth, these separate pursuits can create a chasm between them, where their emotional and physical connections become strained under the weight of their individual goals. This type of growth can be particularly challenging for couples who feel that they should be growing together. Societal narratives often emphasize the idea of couples as one unit that must navigate life's challenges hand in hand. When individuals experience growth on separate paths, it can trigger feelings of guilt, inadequacy, or failure, as though they are not fulfilling the societal expectation of unity. In reality, however, growth on separate paths can be an indication of healthy individual self-discovery. It can signify that both people are embracing their own journeys, even if those journeys no longer intersect in the same way. The concept of separate paths often becomes more pronounced when one partner's personal growth accelerates faster than the other's. For instance, one partner may go through a phase of intense self-reflection or therapy, leading to significant emotional or psychological growth. This may uncover new perspectives, desires, or realizations that challenge the existing relationship dynamic. While the growth may be positive and necessary for that person's well-being, it may not be understood or welcomed by the other partner, particularly if that partner feels left behind or unable to relate to the new version of the individual they are with. The man might feel that his journey has outpaced his partner's, leading him to question the compatibility of their relationship. Meanwhile, the woman might feel that her partner's growth has created a distance she cannot bridge, and she may begin to pull back emotionally. Growth on separate paths also becomes evident when there are mismatched visions of the future. In the early stages of a relationship, partners may align in terms of what they want from life, whether it's marriage, children, travel, or a shared career vision. Over time, however, these visions can evolve independently. One person may find themselves wanting to settle down in one place, while the other may want to explore different countries or career opportunities. As these dreams begin to diverge, the relationship may no longer feel as fulfilling or sustainable, as both partners struggle to reconcile their individual desires with the collective vision they once shared. When couples find themselves on separate paths, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that growth is inherently incompatible with love. However, growth itself is not the problem. The challenge arises when the paths become so different that the relationship can no longer provide the emotional security, connection, or support that once existed. The natural course of life often leads individuals in different directions, and while this can be difficult, it does not necessarily equate to failure or a lack of love. Sometimes it is simply a matter of each person finding their own way, even if that means walking apart.